and they were not by Iraq, and they were not by Iran.
Definitely not Iraq.
Definitely not Iraq. Then that's a war of choice. And what he was really saying is we should not have gone to war in Iraq. And I would, and by the way, that interview he gave is kind of reminiscent of the famous last message from President Eisenhower, who warned against the military-industrial complex. Now, the Gates rule that we should not involve ourselves in wars of choice, but only wars of necessity, I think ought to be expanded to cover not only wars, but all of defense spending. We should only engage in defense spending of necessity, not of choice. And that's how we ought to be measuring the size of our defense program. You know, there used to be a saying back in the 60s. It started under Robert McNamara when he was Secretary of Defense under Lyndon Johnson. The saying was, how much is enough? And we really ought to be trying to figure out how much is enough. And that ought to be measured by how much is necessary. That's all that's enough.
Well, we're down to, it's 9:02 now and we gotta take a bus soon. So I have one more question, and that is that the Department of Defense today is the only department that does not audit itself, or is not audited. They just postponed it now to another 2 years to 2014. One of my biggest problems is that I remember back in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s when we found out that a screw that goes on a toilet or a toilet seat costs $6,000 to $10,000. Today we're talking about a plane. It's costing us billions more than they had anticipated. So it's actually exaggerated and gone even more grandiose. We're spending more money than what we need, and someone's making it, and it's not the American people, not the taxpayers that are benefiting from it. What do you think about that? There's a lot of wasted spending, I would think, there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we need auditing, we need accountability, and we need to know whether we really have a necessity for a new program, or whether it's just something that's basically gold plating or helping a defense contractor who we don't need to help because it's not in our interest. And again, the rule ought to be what is necessary. How much is enough to meet our necessary needs?
Last question. Is Iran as big a threat as they say they are, or will they become a bigger threat if they do end up developing a nuclear bomb?
Well, sure, they've become worrisome, and it's a potential threat. At the present time, it's not a threat to the United States.
But it is to Israel.
It is to Israel. Well,
much more.
Yes, much more to Israel, but so are all the Arab countries, potentially.
True.
Because they all have military establishments.
But not nuclear bombs.
No, and neither does Iran.
Yeah.
And they don't have one yet. It's not clear when they would have one and when they would have the capability for using it. And that's something we have to be very, very concerned about.
Are they as close as they say they are? The experts are saying they're close to developing the nuke in Iran. Are they as close as we?
Well, it's an intelligence question. It's very hard to say because there's so much classified information about it. And we can't really know.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Well, glad to have you on the City Talk Live with my guests. I know you got to take a bus and then a plane out of Boston, out of Logan. So we'll keep in touch. This will be on the YouTube channel and also on Channel 23. This is Glenn Willett, your host, saying thanks to Ed and Richard.
Thanks again.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
I better hustle.
Yeah, okay. Gotta hustle.
So I'm going to...